Nine-Nine will be ending later this year after an 8-season run. In this video, I want to go over what I want from the final season, but mainly the finale, and I'll discuss for a bit what I think about the show. Before I get into that, please remember to follow DM Reviews on Twitter and like and subscribe. Also, please comment what movie or TV show we should review next. Also, this video will contain spoilers for Parks and Recreation, The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and will also contain very brief spoilers for Shaun of the Dead. In a video that came out a week or two ago, I discussed the finales of The Big Bang Theory and Parks and Recreation. I laid out 3 things you have to do to make a successful finale. First, you have to make an entertaining episode. Secondly, you have to give a reason in the show's universe as to why the show's ending. And 3, you have to give a satisfying ending to the main characters' arcs. I'm not going to discuss the entertaining aspect since there isn't much to say. I hope I enjoy the episode, but it is hard to give a blueprint for how that would happen, considering I don't know what will happen in the final season and in the finale. The second thing you have to do is you have to give a reason in the show's universe for why the show would be ending. The easy option is to have the characters move on from the Nine-Nine. That is what Parks and Recreation and The Office did, and it worked very well for both of them. You don't need to have everyone move away though, as we've seen it with The Office. A major part of Dwight Schrute's arc was to become the manager of the Dunder Mifflin Scranton branch, and he does so. So he stays, and so does Angela, since it wouldn't make any sense for her to leave while her husband is the boss there. The only characters who leave are the ones who it makes sense for them to leave. Jim leaves because a part of his arc was to move on from selling paper and do something he enjoys and is passionate about. There are many other characters that leave and stay, and that is because that is what their arc dictated would happen. Brooklyn Nine-Nine needs to understand that some characters can stay at the Nine-Nine. You only need to have the characters leave if it makes sense for their story that they leave, and I will discuss soon who I think should leave. Another option they could do is to have the Nine-Nine shut down. This season would likely be political, so I don't want to get into it, but I would rather they avoid this. There are certain characters who need to stay at the Nine-Nine, so I believe having it shut down is a bad idea. They could also go the opposite route and have the Nine-Nine become the best and most efficient precinct in Brooklyn, and everyone works there happily ever after. However, that has a similar issue since there are some characters who have to leave the Nine-Nine. I would like this more than the Nine-Nine shutting down, but I prefer that some leave and some stay much more. The final thing I want to discuss that a finale must get right is probably the most important. You have to give all of your main characters satisfying arcs. Well, endings to their arcs. For this, I'm just going to go over each character one by one and say how I would want their arc to end. For Holt, I think it is pretty obvious. There are 2 things that must happen. Firstly, I'd want him and Kevin to have a proper wedding in one of the last episodes. Maybe not the finale, but I really do want it to happen. They discussed this a few seasons ago at, I believe, Charles and Gina's parents' wedding, and I think it would be a great idea. I also think he needs to become the commissioner of the NYPD. It has been a long time coming, considering he said that this was his goal in the pilot, so I'm pretty sure they will do it. They did, hint at it because he was running for it, but he didn't get it, and I think that is more just proving the idea that he really does want this, and I think it will happen. Next is Amy. For her, there's really one thing that has to happen. Once Captain Holt becomes commissioner, she must take over as captain of the 99th Precinct. Like Holt, she made it clear in the pilot that this was her goal, so also like Holt, it is only fitting that it happens for her in the finale too. It would be cool if they could have a double promotion party for the 2 of them in the finale or one of the last episodes, but that isn't a necessity. This could be just something that happens the last moment or something, but I really would want that to happen. For Charles, it is a bit complicated since his character has changed a lot since the premiere. He is already married and has a kid, so that probably won't have anything to do with his ending. The main flaw is his relationship with Jake. He doesn't view himself as a priority, and he only cares about Jake. In the most recent episode, he said that his purpose in life was to get Jake to the birth of his baby. He said this even though he is married and he has a kid. He needs to learn to care more about himself. I'm not recommending that they not be best friends anymore. Rather, I just think Charles should learn that he and his family are important too, and they should be more important to him than Jake. I think Charles should leave the Nine-Nine due to reasons I'll discuss later. Terry is an interesting case. He has never really been presented as having a big flaw with himself that isn't fixed in one episode or a few episodes. In the first season, he was worried about going in line of duty because he was worried about dying, but they haven't really talked about that since the first season because they did, give a satisfying conclusion to that arc. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he leaves the Nine-Nine. Maybe to a safer job and one with fewer hours so he could be with his kids more. I'm not really sure how I'd feel about that. It would probably depend on how they did it, but it is an idea because I was really struggling because they're obviously going to give him an ending to his arc, and I'm really not sure what they're going to do here because, they don't really have a huge problem with it right now. I'm thinking maybe they could have one throwaway line where he says I love something instead of Terry loves it, but that, I'd be kind of disappointed if that was really the big ending to his arc. Next is Rosa. Rosa is also difficult to decide on. I ended up choosing that she get married and she leaves the 99, or maybe she stays, but mainly she needs to become less dark and learn that not everything is so dark and gloomy. Either she stays at the 99, becomes less dark, and is more optimistic, kind of like how a lot of the other characters, mainly Jake, is like very upbeat about this job and he looks at the the better parts, or she leaves and gets a happier and less violent job. Scully and Hitchcock should probably finally retire, or maybe they could return to their old selves and be healthy again and be like these great detectives who are like energetic and everybody loves them. But that seems very unlikely given how they've acted the past 7 years, so maybe just retiring, but I wouldn't be too upset if they didn't really give them an arc, an ending to their arc, because they haven't really had one. Like, they did change his characters, but that was just because they realized what they wanted to do with him, but they haven't really had like a character arc. Then finally, the show's most important character, Jake Peralta. When we are first introduced to him, he has two huge flaws. Firstly, he is in love with Amy, but he is too shy to tell her. Since then, he has married her, and they now have a child, so that probably won't have anything to do with the finale, and definitely not the conclusion to his arc. Unless they go a Jim and Pam route and give them marital issues, but like I was for Jim and Pam, I would be very against this idea, and I think they'll avoid that mistake since I'm pretty sure they have the same people doing this show as the people who did The Office. His other flaw is he's too childish and he needs to grow up and learn to accept responsibility. This is where I think the final season will go with him. First, we will probably see him become a good and responsible father. On the subject, they really should have had Jake and Amy name their kid Charles. I thought they were setting that up, and I was very disappointed that they didn't do that. I feel like Charles would have kind of passed out, kind of similar to when they said they were having twins, even though they weren't. I think that would have been such a great moment, So I think that in the final season, we will see him learn to grow up while also maintaining that fun-loving sense about him. It would kind of be like the ending of Shaun of the Dead. We see Shaun grow up and become more mature, while also being able to have fun in a childish manner with his zombie friend. He's able to turn on his childish sense about him when he wants to, but he can also turn it off for most of the time, so it's only because, it's good in small doses, but it wasn't good to have it in the abundance that he had towards the beginning of the movie. I would want them to go a similar route with Jake's ending. I think he should stay in the 99, but learn responsibility and become a sergeant. He would stay in the 99 with Amy as the captain, and that seems like it would be a fitting end for his arc. Due to this, I think Charles should leave the 99 and also just New York. It would show that he is finally putting his family first, and it would allow Jake to show that he has matured by being happy for him. It would be very sad, but I think that's kind of the way they have to go. Also, really quick, I really want Gina to appear in the finale. I didn't like her return episode, but I can't imagine the show ending without her there. She shouldn't have a big role, rather she should just be there to be herself a bit and show us what she's been up to since we've last seen her. Kind of like how Ann Perkins was in the Parks and Recreation finale. She was really just there to interact with the characters again and show us what she's been up to, but she didn't get some big moments or anything like that. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of my favorite shows. I'm a huge fan of workplace comedies, and this is easily one of my favorites. The thing I like most about this show is its consistency. It doesn't really have any bad seasons. Even its first season is good. Even the best workplace comedies have a poor first season, but not this one. That is what makes me want this final season to be so good, more than other shows. If it is satisfactory, then the show will never have had a bad season, and I will look at it as such. Andy Samberg has been so good at Jake Peralta. He has really been on par with other great leads of workplace comedies like Steve Carell and Amy Poehler. I wouldn't say he is as good as either of them, but that he isn't far off, and that's very high praise. Andre Braugher and Chelsea Peretti have given us two of the best performances I've ever seen in a comedy. They both have brought so much depth and humanity to their roles, who are, very outlandish characters, to say the least. Holt and Jake's relationship would not have worked if Andre Braugher wasn't as good as he was in this role. The show has also always had great writing, and it has always been very funny. It is super watchable and rewatchable. I've watched the show a few times, and it really doesn't get old, and that is what good shows, especially comedies, do. In my opinion, the two best workplace comedies ever made, or at least that I've seen, are Parks and Recreation and The Office. And those are shows that I've probably watched 8 times because they're so good and fun to watch. And Brooklyn Nine-Nine has that too. I really hope that they do the things I've discussed in this video. Please comment what your opinion on Brooklyn Nine-Nine is and what you think of the finale I've discussed.